How's it going, everybody? Dave Meltzer here with the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling with Bryan. Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly, and today's going to be a real special show because today's the one we've been talking about for weeks. It's a tribute show for Ray Stevens. We're going to have 5 of the biggest names in the history of this industry on in just about a half an hour. We're going to have Ric Flair, Superstar Billy Graham, Nick Bockwinkel, Bobby Heenan, and Red Bastien. We won't be taking phone calls today, but we will be taking emails, talking about Ray Stevens, talking about the current scene. This is going to be a real good show, and I can't wait. Bryan, how are you today?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Before we talk about that, I guess the first thing we should talk about is, we'll talk about SmackDown last night from Madison Square Garden, and actually a really well-received show. And I guess a lot of stuff going on in backstage there, too, as well. It's quite an interesting atmosphere. I was just told that the atmosphere backstage at the WWF has changed completely in the last week as far as dressing room, and there's a lot of, that thing about that cohesive locker room and everything that they're looking for? It isn't so cohesive anymore. Anyway, let's...
just wait. Nash will come in and he'll get everything settled.
Yeah. It's just different people that came from different environments, and there's this certain... there's like that resentment. It's actually exactly the same as when Mid-South... Actually, there's many similarities between Mid-South when they were bought by Jim Crockett Promotions in '87. I mean, the stories I heard last night were just like, oh my God, I'm reliving 1987 again. And hopefully I don't relive the end result, because that wasn't a good end result at all.
We've talked a lot about promos, though. When people cut promos, they really do a really great job when they actually believe what they're saying. And It might actually be good to have just a little bit of, a little bit of trouble backstage. Not trouble that's going to cause,
Maybe Vince is causing it, playing that game.
Hey, he's done it before.
He is the best at that, that's for sure. Let's see. Okay. SmackDown opened. Vince and Linda McMahon came out, and Vince McMahon said that WCW had soiled the good name of Madison Square Garden, that it used to be the most famous arena, but now it's no different than the Nassau Coliseum, which I hope, for his sake, wasn't the case, because the Nassau Coliseum crowds are so dead on television, and Madison Square Garden crowds are usually a little bit better. Anyway, he talked about all the great memories. Actually, Linda said that she couldn't believe that Vince would insult Madison Square Garden, their home base. All of the great things that had happened, Bruno Sammartino and Superstar Billy Graham and all that. And then she said that when he showed all those highlights from Madison Square Garden, he forgot to show the clip of when she asked him for a divorce, and then Vince had that Vince McMahon cartoon character look. Said he no longer wanted a divorce. He's a loving, caring husband. And Linda said that deep down in his twisted heart, that may be true. So she still hasn't figured it out. Is that the deal? Anyway, but he's got his problem is his priorities are all mixed up. Vince said he's a fair man, but Linda is just trying to steal half of his money. And Linda said that since Vince had prevented WCW from getting any sort of a time slot, that to be fair, they should let WCW get some airtime on Raw. Vince said, no way. Linda said, are you scared? And Vince, of course, said that he's not scared of anything. And then Linda said, if you're not scared, we have a pay-per-view called Fully Loaded. Why not change the name of it to Invasion and have WWF against WCW matches? And Vince said, okay, no problem. So that's what happened. Then they had a promo, and the APA cut some more promos. Same basic thing, so that's what happened there. Same thing as on Monday. Edge and Christian beat Billy Gunn and X-Pac when, Edge pinned X-Pac with the Impaler. Steve Austin was backstage talking about how bad he wanted to beat up Booker T. Unfortunately, this is not the week it's going to happen, because Steve Austin and Kurt Angle are not in good physical shape right now. Vince McMahon came in, and Austin was angry. Austin said that he wanted WCW match on WFTV. Vince asked him why. Austin whispered something into his ear, and then Vince said that starting next Monday on Raw in Tacoma, there will be WCW matches on Raw and on SmackDown. So they're going to start. Those guys are going to start getting.
That's going to be the first historic thing that ever happened in Tacoma.
It won't be the last, because there's going to be a lot of historic things on Monday in Tacoma. So anyway, that's what happened there. In Spokane, they're going to have Booker T and Buff Bagwell and Chavo Guerrero Jr. and Shane Helms 2 title matches. which I'm real interested to see how that's positioned on the card, because I just remember when UWF was bought by Jim Crockett Promotions, and I went to a show where they were going to have UWF title matches on the, basically on the joint show, okay? It was billed as a joint show. I went to Houston, Texas, big joint show, and Ric Flair and Barry Windham for the NWA title was the main event. They had a hell of a match. They went 30 minutes. And Steve Williams and I think it was Bubba Rogers, but I don't remember exactly. But anyway, the UWF title match was like 4th on an 8-match card, and the UWF tag team title was like 3rd on an 8-match card. And right then and there, that night, it was like the beginning of the feud, and I go, I know where this one's going. And I was right on that. Let's see. They did a taped interview with Sarah and her husband, whatever his name is, and I guess they didn't trust it to be live, and she was talking about if anybody messes with Mark, and Undertaker was real mad because she called him Mark on television, and he's not Mark, and he threw
Maybe she called him A Mark.
Maybe that's what it was, but he was upset, so there's trouble in paradise there, too. Let's see, so then, Vince, Austin, and Deborah talking in the locker room. Kurt Angle came in and said he heard a rumor that Booker T was going to be there, and Austin said that he's happy because he wants to beat up Booker T anyway. Albert won the Intercontinental title. You heard that right from Kane when DDP hit Kane with a diamond cutter. And later in the show, Vince McMahon blamed Undertaker for that because he was the one who said that security could not keep DDP out of the building. So that's the story there. So anyway, none of the WCW guys or WWF B team guys ran to attack DDP. I don't know why, because later on, not so much later, in fact, they did.
Maybe they were still having that meeting backstage.
Yeah, I guess so.
They were so busy having a meeting that people were running in and they didn't see it.
Yeah, Spike Dudley and Molly Holly were talking, and Spike called Molly beautiful. Perry Saturn interrupted them for some reason. Anyway, Crash Holly came out and said that it makes him sick to see tiny guys like Spike Dudley wrestling in the WWF. Then challenged them to a mixed tag match with Crash and Jackie. Okay, let's see. Then they have the match. Actually, they don't have the match yet. Dudley's against the Hardys in an elimination tables match. I think that the two guys go through tables. And then Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare ran out wearing their WCW T-shirts, which probably say WWF.com in the back, no doubt, right? Actually, I don't know if they said that. But anyway, they run out and they start beating them up when the entire WWF B-Team locker room ran out, and they destroyed Chuck Palumbo and Sean O'Hare. I mean, they killed them. And I was told that they killed them worse than they were supposed to because there were certain people in that locker room who believed that those guys were too cocky for their own good, and they needed to be taught a lesson. And they don't realize that they
APA was out there, I'm sure, all ready to teach some lessons.
And they did. Actually, they've been teaching. They did that with some other people in the last week too. Where were we? So anyway, they were killed. Rhino stiffed. Was it Sean O'Hare with a gore? Let's see. Haku, S.A. Rios, Kai and Ty, Bull Buchanan, Goodfather. They just kept beating him up. The Acolytes power-bombed them through a table, and they continued beating on him even when the cameras were rolling, or cameras were turned off for the commercial. After the commercial, the WWF locker room was shown dragging them backstage and still pounding on them. Okay, then it was Spike and Molly against Crash and Jackie, where Molly pinned Jackie. And then after the match, Crash blamed Jackie for getting pinned, and so she started beating up on old Crash.
She better beat the hell out of him, because this is right before Tough Enough.
Yeah, well, she does. Sure. Let's see, then more with Austin and Angle and everybody. And Earl Hebner comes in and says somebody from WCW wants to see them. So they all think it's Booker T and Austin's getting ready to fight, but in fact it's Tori Wilson. And Tori Wilson says that her contract with WCW is expiring, and she wants to talk to Vince about signing with the WWF for a private meeting. And then Steve Austin acted very jealous. This is a weird one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that contract tampering, by the way?
I guess so. Big Show was again trying to get Trish to go to Europe with him. And anyway, she talked him into ordering first-class tickets for both of them. That guy, that Big Show's, with all that big contract, he's going to end up broke anyway. And anyway, Big Show, the clumsy guy that he is, knocked down Trish's water and grabbed a mop to clean it up. And Perry Saturn got mad because I guess it was his mop. So that's that. And I'll tell you what.
Are you sure it wasn't Terry?
when it comes to reasons for when it comes to reasons for setting up a match, that is definitely a new one. They showed some stuff in Regal's office, and he still had the green mist all over his face. And they set up a tag match where Chris Jericho and a mystery partner were going to face Regal and Tajiri. Mystery partner turned out to be Scotty 2 Hotty. Anyway, Big Show beat Perry Saturn, which was just an excuse so Terry and Trish Stratus could have their catfight scene. Then the WWF B team was guarding the doors, making sure that no more WCW wrestlers were going to get in the rest of the show. And they were not successful. Tajiri and Regal lost to Jericho and Scotty 2 Hotty when Scotty pinned Tajiri. That'll teach Tajiri for getting over. Let's see. Then Vince McMahon started talking about Tori Wilson. You ever notice how the people who are in charge with booking always link themselves, no matter how old they are, with like the best looking woman that comes through the door?
Of course.
Yeah, Shane's going to link himself.
One of the benefits to being a booker.
I know, and you know what else? How often does that stuff play out in real life? Far too often for...
Oh, yeah.
I know, so anyway, that's another story. Let's see. Kurt Angle says that why are they wasting their time talking about Tori Wilson when they should be talking about Booker T? This caused Austin to get very angry because he was tired of hearing about Booker T. As I said, I was told this was an excellent show. Then we had, actually the final segment of the show, which was Steve Austin came out and challenged Booker T to come out and fight. And he said he'd give him 10 seconds, and Booker T did not show up. So Taz finally got tired of Steve Austin. He got up, so they're setting up the big Taz-Steve Austin match, which I think is going to take place on Monday. And Taz told Steve Austin to apologize regarding Michael Cole, and Steve Austin kind of laughed at him. And Taz said he was going to beat the apology out of him, and somehow Steve Austin hit Taz with the belt in the face, knocked him out, and started beating on him. And let's see, then what happened? Finally, Michael Cole came out, and Steve Austin threatened to beat up Michael Cole. And before he could lay out Michael Cole, Booker T ran out and hit Steve Austin with the WCW title belt. And then the entire WF locker room, lower card locker room, ran out, and Booker T ran away into Shane McMahon's limo and sped off to end the show. So that's the show. Okay. Anything else, Brian, as far as that goes?
I think that's it. Sounds like a pretty good show.
Oh, yeah. It sounds real good.
They got to do the angle pretty soon where the whole WCW roster lays them out. It's got to be coming.
I think they got to do it Monday.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I wasn't planning on going to Raw and SmackDown, but I might do it now.
Really? You're going to go to SmackDown, too?
I may.
I would go to Raw. And SmackDown, you know. How far is Tacoma?
From here, about hour.
Oh, God. Then
hour in traffic.
Sure. Oh, God. I thought it was like 3 hours or something.
Oh, hell no. Portland's 3 hours. Portland's not even 3 hours, actually.
Like if they were in Sacramento is one of those, like, maybe I'll go, maybe I won't, because that's like about 2.5 hours. But, you know, Oakland, San Francisco, which are like an hour, you know. I mean, I would go unless it's Tuesday. Well, it's Tuesday night I would go for sure. Monday night I wouldn't go because I can see it on TV. Actually, you know what? You should probably go Tuesday, not Monday, because Monday you can watch it on TV anyway. You don't really need to go.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, okay. Anyway, Carl DeMarco is going to be on Live Audio Wrestling this Saturday, which will be on from 6 to 8 Eastern instead of 5 to 7 due to arena football. God, they get jacked around too much. So anyway, he's president of WWF Canada, so I wanted to make mention of that. And also, Mick Foley will be. God, he doesn't want to travel, but in fact, well, he can take 6 shows at once. He will be the host of TNN's Robot Wars Extreme Warriors. Remember that show we talked about?
Oh yeah.
Mick Foley will be the host. Quote, Mick Foley is the perfect host for TNN Robot Wars Extreme Warriors, says Diana Robina, the executive VP and general manager of TNN. He's beloved by World Wrestling Federation fans, but won't be for long if he keeps doing stuff like this. And it's natural to host this high-octane robot battle featuring house robots developed as characters, much like the characters of the World Wrestling
Federation. House robots?
Yes.
What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know anything about robots, and I really don't want to know, and I'm not going to.
Not outsider robots?
Okay. How'd the newsletter turn out?
I got done later than you did. I was sitting there trying to proofread it, and all of a sudden I got the email from you saying you were going to bed.
I know. This is like probably the earliest I ever went to bed on a Tuesday in my life. Yeah.
It went pretty well, though.
What?
It went pretty well.
It went good. I'm so thrilled with this issue. I don't know why. just a lot of news. You know, a lot of stuff's going on right now, and a lot of stuff will be going on for the next, actually probably 3 months through October, November till this thing all settles in. But we got all the news as far as WWF, WCW. Plus, it did a lot of historical stuff. You know, the Ali Inoki, since it was the 25-year anniversary of it, actually. What day was the 25-year anniversary of it? Yesterday was. Wow. And anyway, that and 10-year anniversary of the Zahorian trial, 5-year anniversary of WWF suing WCW, 1-year anniversary of USA suing WCW and Viacom. So it's just a bunch of lawsuits.
Are you going to do that every week now, 1, 5, 10, and 20 years ago?
No, I just did it this week because I just did it. Next week I for sure won't do it. Because this week there was so much interesting stuff. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, and so much of it relates to today, which is why once I started reading it, it was like, I got to put this in. But next week, no. Next week we're going to get some letters in because I got some really, really good letters in the last couple of weeks that I haven't had room for. But
actually, I cut stuff out this week.
So did I.
It was a toss-up between the Lita conference call and the Tough Enough review, and
I would Lita got the review. Hey, that's what that was the call I would have made too. There was nothing in that Lita conference call.
I know.
Really. So you know, Tough Enough review, all the Japan news. Anyway, there's info on the website WrestlingObserver.com on how to subscribe to both Figure 4 and Wrestling Observer. So anyway, there's that. Scott Hudson was contacted, and in fact, I think he may be flying up to Stamford, Connecticut this week. So that's for those of you interested in who may be announcing at WCW. He's one of the maybes. In fact, I guess by the fact they're flying him in means that they're going to take him. So anyway, this is from Keith Morrison, who says, here's a couple of news items that I may have read somewhere on the internet. It says Bill Goldberg has negotiated someone. By the way, this is all a spoof, so please do not take any of this seriously. Bill Goldberg has negotiated a contract with the WWF. Goldberg will sign a $3 million contract, but he will not be wrestling. He will do a Brother Love segment from his living room couch. A local independent promoter was shocked Friday night when Jake Roberts showed up for one of his shows in condition to wrestle. Actually, I like that one. Last week, by repeating the same phrase over and over, Jacques Rougeau made a short story long. Hey, people love Jacques here. Haku made some off-color remarks about Rikishi's rear end. When the comments got their way back to Rikishi, he confronted Haku. Haku told Rikishi he shouldn't be so angry because the comments were only tongue-in-cheek. That's lame. Let's see. Vince McMahon decided on Sunday that he needed to push somebody to the top and decided it was Edge. So to make an Edge the top guy, he was instructed to do a run-in the main event to lay out Stone Cold, Jericho, and Benoit. 2 minutes later, as Edge took his spot in the gorilla position, Vince, just getting off of that cell phone, came up, realized that Edge, in fact, was not over, and canceled the run-in.
And had blonde hair.
That was the joke, Bryan.
Okay.
To find out how much money is available for creation of a new federation, Vince McMahon, Jerry Jarrett, and Hulk Hogan have all ordered copies of Matthew Lesko's book. Billy Gunn enjoyed that promo on Monday night. He went up to Edge and goes, "Man, that promo where you ran me down was awesome. Who are the writers?" To which Ed replied, "Writers?" Anyway, so much for that. Let's see, this is from John, who said, I read that Low-Key had a match on WF tapings. Yeah, he did, last night, as a matter of fact. And he did a good showing against Raven. That was did that as well. I think that was the night before. Do you know if he has a developmental deal? No, he does not. What's the situation with his chances of making it? He's ultra talented, but then again, so are Chris Daniels and Mike Modest. You know, I still haven't seen Low-Key, but obviously I will be seeing him soon. But what was I going to say about that? They are not looking to add people right now to their developmental roster. You know, they haven't signed, since York and Matthews, who have already been cut, they haven't signed anybody developmentally, I think, all year, have they?
I don't think so.
Ever since WCW.
So many guys.
Yeah, I think that they're just going to go with what they have. This is from Nathan, who goes, the invasion angle should not be heel versus face, but like two sports teams playing against each other. I agree, and that's what it's going to end up. That's what it's got to be. It can't be a heel promotion versus face promotion because they both got to end up as face promotions in a month. Let's see. What do we have here?
You know, I was looking back at the whole NWO deal last night, and I was just looking at the whole storyline was built around the fact that WCW was this loser organization, and it was just amazing to me that at this time when WCW was just kicking the WWF's ass, at the same time their storyline was that they were losers. And look what happened.
Yes, I know. This is from Marcus, who goes, all of this talk is mute. WWF is going to be doing 3.0s pretty soon once Monday Night Football starts. I will not predict anything. I will not predict anything because I have no idea where this is going to turn out, but I do have something to say about that. Just right, he goes, reminds me of the death of roller derby. Where's anyone heard that one before? He goes, dead within 18 months. Okay, this is not going to be dead in 18 months like roller derby. Okay, there's a couple things about it, and a lot of the roller derby or Jim Crockett promotions or Montreal wrestling or Detroit wrestling analogies pretty much all hold true, but there's one big difference. Okay, well, and what happens is there's a big war. The war ends. Somebody loses. They do interpromotional. The promotion that wins usually kills the promotion that loses because they can. And during this period, which is actually the period we're going through right now, there's a short-term period of anywhere between 3 and 6 months where business booms again because people are seeing all those matches they want to see. And then it dies real fast. That's what happened with roller derby, Montreal wrestling, Detroit wrestling, all of them. And they all died. The difference is, and why this will not die, is because none of those promoters had $250 million of cash reserve to ride them out through the bad period. Vince has enough money. You know, whenever I hear about, like, Vince can't afford
and a
some
net
guy,
worth of $750 million.
Billion, although that will go down. But still, even if it goes down to, let's say,
$750 billion? What are you talking about?
$700 billion. Vince
$750 million. Because he's no longer a billion.
You're right, $700 million. Okay, I'm losing my mind.
I almost had a heart attack right there.
I know, my God, then he's really rich. But no, yeah, Vince has a net worth of $700 million right now, which will go down, but even if it goes down to $500 million, you know, none of those promoters have that kind of money. So he can buy anyone he wants. He can ride this out for as long as he wants. He's already making cutbacks. So, I mean, it's not like he's not preparing for this.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, it may very well go down, and won't go down for 3 to 6 months if this thing's done right. At least the beginning, I think you can't screw up. Although,
I mean, think about it. Right now, they have 4 years of losing $60 million before they would be in trouble.
Exactly. And they don't have the contract overhead like WCW had to where they're ever going to lose that kind of money anyway, because if they start losing money on the road, they'll cut back on road expenses. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
these guys, none of these guys have big downside guarantees. I mean, in comparison to what, you know, the kind of contracts that WCW had with those guys that couldn't draw anymore at the end. You know, so they're not the dangers of losing. I mean, they could conceivably lose money if this thing goes south, but they're not going to ever lose that kind of money. And the time it would take for them to lose $250 million, believe me, they'll come up with something new, and they'll be, you know what I mean? It's not going away. It probably will. There's a good chance it will go down at some point. Maybe it won't, but there's probably a good shot of that. Let's see. Wasn't the Chemo Sakuraba fight a work? I don't think it was. Let's see. More on Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler.
Why would you want to do a work where you just get your ass handed to you? Why not just try to do a shoot?
Yeah. What is your take on Rob Van Dam? I stumbled on ECW a year ago and I was amazed at his talents. I grew up watching WWF and WCW. I feel Rob Van Dam is the best wrestler currently in the business. Bryan and I will not agree with that one.
I don't think you watched enough ECW.
Yeah, he's a very talented athlete, but far from that. He goes, I also like Tajiri. Tajiri's awesome. Let's see. This is from Mark Hodgkinson, who goes, perhaps as a Canadian, I'm a homer here, but what does it take to get Chris Jericho in a long program to make him a dominant headliner? A different promoter. He can work long matches. A different son-in-law. He can work long matches, short matches, aerial matches, submission matches. He's willing to do the job without complaint. He has mic skills. You know, his mic skills have gone down, though. He's too catchphrase reliant.
They've gone down because it's the same old, you know?
Yeah. He gets great face pops. He can get great heel heat. I can go on. Suffice to say, I see his program getting changed on a weekly basis despite all his talent. No other dominant headliner was given 2 weeks to prove the stock before being dropped back to a mid-card status. That is true.
When do you notice that?
Yes. No more limping old punch fests from Austin Kane. Why do people always rip on Austin? I mean, he's got bad knees, but my God, you know? That guy's great. I just think that Steve Austin works so hard. And, I mean, he's not, you know, Chris Benoit, but, I mean, it's like his mic skills are great. His acting is great for wrestling. I mean, you know.
I think there are certain people that for some reason it doesn't matter what the quality of all their matches are. people just see them as not being good. It's just like Rock,
Steve
you know.
Austin? Steve
People till
Austin's
the
always...
day that Rock dies will say, that guy's not a very good worker. But he just has string after string of good matches. And is it always the other guy?
Part of it is also because, you know, I don't know, like, Rock isn't, super versatile, but God, I mean, he moves like an athlete. It's just like the key is...
He knows what to do.
He knows when to make his comeback. The people are with him.
That's so much a part of it. I mean, great. You can have Chris Benoit in there with Billy Gunn. Look at the guys that Billy Gunn has had a chance to work with, and he still can't have a good match.
Well, nobody.
Yet Rock seems to have a good match with all these guys. Why is that? Because he's in there with someone good?
Good match with Rikishi on one of those pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Remember? Let's see. WF needs to bring in Ric Flair. Yeah. Well, we'll hear more about that. I like the angle with Austin, Vince, and Kurt Angle. It made me laugh so hard I couldn't breathe. Oh, they're going to start killing people like Blassie did. The angle with Edge and Billy Gunn was really funny. Yeah, it was hilarious. When Billy Gunn talked about the stuff you say about him on the show, I was laughing. Okay. I know bringing Scott Hall back is a bad idea, but if they could put a punishment clause in his contract, like that he has to pay the WF $1 million if he does drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh, they'd sign him in a heartbeat because that's money in the bank, right? Oh, God.
Or alcohol. Yes, Scott, you may not have a drink at the bar, or you owe us $1 million.
Yeah,
He'd be signing that thing immediately.
Scott is not drinking alcohol these days. And that's not a sarcastic remark. He really isn't.
Okay.
You don't believe me. Anyway, this is from Peter, who says, with the recent merger of WWF and WCW, if WCW gets its own television slot, what are the chances of WWF selling the show overseas? Like 100%. Okay? We already get Raw and SmackDown. I'd like to be able to view WCW as well. Well, if you get Raw and SmackDown, you're going to be viewing lots of WCW. Let's see. SmackDown was everything Raw. This is from someone who attended both shows at the Garden. SmackDown was everything that Raw should have been. Given all the injuries, SmackDown played out great. The beatdown from the WWF wrestlers on Palumbo and O'Hara was great. Albert and Kane had an impressive match. Wow, that's something to see. Kane did a standing hurricane.
I heard Albert went for a power bomb, and Kane turned it into a Frankensteiner.
Yeah, that's the spot he just talked about.
Wow.
Yeah. Kurt was hilarious. Elevated or not, he works great with Austin and vignettes. The two worst wrestlers from Raw, Billy Gunn and Big Show, were in interesting spots on the show. Vince's interview at the beginning was good, but it was too long. The Torrie Wilson thing was obvious, but still interesting. The final angle was okay, but I felt Booker T should have attacked him face up instead of from behind. Well, I think that, I don't know. They did a good job.
What was the Billy Gunn thing? I don't even remember.
I guess just the tag match.
Oh, okay.
He worked the tag match with X-Pac. They kind of redid DX. That's kind of weird, too. Let's see. Let's see. I listened to your show in the UK. It was interesting to hear what you said about Booker T. Forgive me if I misinterpreted what you said, but it seemed you were saying one of the reasons Booker T got such a push in WCW was because he was black. You did not misinterpret what I said. That is true. I happen to think that along with Scott Steiner and Bill Goldberg, Booker T carried a weak WCW over the last year. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying that was one of the timing reasons. He has great ability. I think he can really match Austin one-on-one in the feud. He's got a ways to go. Maybe he can. He's good. He's a great athlete. He's one of the few black superstars to emerge on the scene in several years. Let's hope his talent is not wasted. One could say over the years, WWF has hardly developed the full potential of his black performers. Take Ron Simmons. In WCW,
Take The Rock.
The Rock. I knew you were going to say that.
I know it's hard to believe that man's black, but it's true. And
that's right, and they have certainly given him the chance. In WCW with Butch Reed, he was part of one of the most intense and physical teams in wrestling. Dude, they weren't that good. With the Acolytes, the WWF has a team that has the potential to look just as devastating, but they're never given decent angles to work with. Yeah, I don't know. Historically, the WWF has never represented black America with any great light. Look at Virgil, for instance. With talented performers like Booker T and Ron Simmons in the Federation, now is a perfect opportunity to address that issue.
One thing real quick about looking devastating in wrestling. I'm not a big fan of looking devastating by really beating the hell out of your opponent. Like Acolytes just killing some guy with a clothesline or power bombing him as hard as they can. So, I just don't like that.
Let's see. What do you think about a match next week between Palumbo and O'Hara against the Dudleys? I think we'll be seeing it. I think next week would be too soon. Yeah, I could see that one on the pay-per-view. I mean, I don't know it. I just heard I heard, let's see, what did I hear? 5-on-5 and then another tag team. I think they're kind of like, I don't think the names are decided on yet. They could be, but let's see.
For some reason recently with what they've been doing, I doubt it.
Guys, we've got Bobby Heenan and Red Bastien right now. Nick Bockwinkel will be up in about 15, 20 minutes, and Billy Graham is a little bit indisposed right now. He'll be up in about 10. And Ric Flair, apparently he's having some family difficulties. We may or may not have him this evening, so just to let everybody know. But first up, Bobby Heenan and Red Bastien.
How are you guys doing today? Let's start with Red. Red, what's going on?
Well, not much. I'm up in the great Northwest at the present time. Getting ready to get my sailboat ready and go out doing some sailing this summer.
Oh, that's cool. And we got Bobby. Bobby's out in Bobby, how are you today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
We're doing really good.
Well, good.
We're going to talk. Of course, we're here to talk about Ray Stevens, and I guess Red, you probably knew him longer than just about anyone. Because I mean, I remember you were. When did you first meet Ray Stevens?
I think I first met him in 1957 or 58, something like that. I met him in Charlotte, North Carolina. He was there. I was there, and he came in. He was had been wrestling over there for Nick Goulas, I think, and then I came back from the service and spent some time in Texas and Oregon, and then I went down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's when Ray came in. I was there already.
And you know your career and his career crossed paths for 20+ years, I guess.
Yeah, it's really strange. So, Ray, every time I'd go someplace, he was either there or he'd be there, or he was there, or I would be there and he would come in. It's just, and yet on the other hand, there's some guys in the business I never met. Our paths never just crossed. So it's kind of funny how that works.
Now, in 57, I mean, I know that like in the 60s, the guy, really had the rep as being, maybe the premier performer in the entire business. I mean, did he already have that in 57? When you met him, was he already like the Ray Stevens that people talked about later, or was it just developing?
No, he was there already. I don't know how he did it. Ray's really a strange guy because he had charisma and pizzazz. I was just amazed at him. He looked so young, at the time I saw him, he was even much younger than I, so I had heard about him already, but the Lord only knows I didn't have any idea what kind of work he was, but he was one heck of a wrestler.
Now, Bobby, where did you first cross paths with him in the AWA, or did you cross paths with him earlier than that?
I could never stand the bum. No, I met Ray in 1961 in Indianapolis. I was setting the ring and carrying jackets, and him and his tag partner, the Roy Shires, Ray was boxing Archie Moore that night.
Oh, wow.
It was Roy Shires and Ray Stevens against Archie Moore. And I never could figure it out because Ray got his butt kicked, but then on the way back from the ring, he knocked out 4 people. Well, that was Ray.
Now, so you would have been, a pretty young kid.
I was 17.
Yeah. What? When he was already in there. Now, Bobby, you never went to San Francisco. I mean, during that glory period. I know Red was in and out of there, several times.
No, I never did.
Yeah. Red, what was it like as far as San Francisco? Because, I mean, when people think of Ray Stevens, even though he wrestled literally all over the world, Australia, Japan, New York, he was a headliner everywhere, they always think of San Francisco and the Cow Palace.
Well, he was there for so long, that's where his home was after a while. When him and Roy Shire left Indianapolis, they went to San Francisco, and they were running opposition to, what was the guy's name down there?
Joe Malkovich?
Yeah. And so that's where he stayed after that. That was his home, for many, many years, and I guess he liked it there because he was making money, I guess.
Well, just like for years you talked about New York, first name that came up was Bruno. You talked about wrestling in California, San Francisco was Ray Stevens.
Speaking of Bruno, what was the story with him beating Bruno for the WWF title in San Francisco? What did they do there? Was it like a count-out?
I don't know.
Okay, that was a match in '67 in San Francisco, and Ray Stevens held a belt. I think he held one of the belts, and they brought Bruno in to defend the WWF title. and they had a match at the Cow Palace, drew real big, and Ray won by countout. And in San Francisco, by the rules of the, that Roy Shires went by, a countout was the same thing as a pin. It was like, whatever, it was a win. But by the New York rules, a countout was not a win. It was like a DQ. So Bruno kept the title, could go back. But then in San Francisco, they could say, Ray Stevens just beat Bruno Sammartino. So it was basically face-saving for both sides.
Okay.
And, since Bruno wasn't going to be there all the time, it made sense for Ray to win, if you think about it. Yeah. Now, Red, when you were in San Francisco on and off, what did Stevens have, I guess, that maybe a lot that the other wrestlers didn't have, or what made him so special as a performer?
Well, he had it. We don't know. We're not sure just exactly what it was, but he had it. Just to give you an example, for so many years he wrestled in little towns, like Modesto, California. They run that town every week. And we're talking about guys that can draw. Ray Stevens drew in there for 10 years straight. He's in there every week. If they mix him up, they give him a tag team partner. It's the 6-man tag match. They did everything. And he was always there, and he always had a house. And no matter who got there or who came in, he always made it. He always ended up being a top guy, which he was. He had so much charisma in the ring there that people just either loved to hate him or loved to love him.
You know what it was, I think, too, Red?
What?
I think that there's a lot of guys in our business, and you know this. They don't want to go out there and work unless they're with the top guy.
Yes.
And when you're wrestling, like, say, Bruno in New York, you fly around for him. Yes. Stevens would do that for Frank Monte in Modesto. Ray never shortchanged the people. When they went to see Ray Stevens, they got their money's worth.
Absolutely.
And that's what it was. He gave them a main event match, no matter who he wrestled.
Oh, no, I remember in Red, you would know this. Ray Stevens could make, the lowest guy on the totem pole, so to speak, and make you think that guy was a world-class top worker.
That's right.
He did it all the time.
Yeah.
He did it all the time.
I remember seeing guys that, barely could lace their boots in their first few matches that were basically television cannon fodder that everybody else would walk through in 3 minutes, and Ray Stevens would go out there for 8 to 10 minutes with a guy, and, you would go like, whoa, this guy's going to be a superstar someday, about the other guy. And then they never were.
Well, we're in a tag match one night in Rockford, Illinois, Ray and I. It was, some nights, I don't care what you do, they're dead. And Ray had my Via down and was choking him. And the crowd was just dead. And Ray says, watch me switch gears. And he started choking my Via, and his hair started flying, and his eyes got big. And he just kept choking him and choking him. Finally, he had everybody in the place standing because he shifted gears.
He could really get it.
Now, you became, Bobby, you became really affiliated with Stevens in the AWA with Nick Bockwinkel and Ray Stevens tag team, and as AWA tag team champion. So you were traveling with him, for what, about a couple of years there.
Oh, yeah. I came into the AWA first time in 66 or so, or 67, Larry Hennig hurt his leg, and I went in to manage Harley for about a month. And then I went in there for good in 69 with Blackjack Lanza, and around 71 or 70, Ray came in. And I was finishing up. I'd gone to Japan. I was just coming back. I was going back to Indianapolis. And Ray had teamed up with Nick. And then I went to Indianapolis until 74, and then I came back to Minneapolis, and that's when I teamed with Ray and Bockwinkel.
And, Red, you were there during that period with Crusher and with Hercules Cortez and people like that.
Yes, I was, as a matter of fact.
So you were wrestling, basically when he first came in, you were probably just about his number one opponent.
Yeah, I worked with him a lot, that's for sure. And he came at a time, I was always over there in Minneapolis because that was my hometown. I grew up there and went to high school and all that stuff there. And so there was a lot of fans that were there that knew me already, so I didn't have to, I had a pretty good base there to begin with. And when Ray came in, my God, we just took that and shook it a little bit, and it really worked.
Change gears.
Yeah, change gears.
I want to read this. This is from Tom Hankins, who's a wrestler in the 70s, who is a big fan of Ray Stevens. He just says, I've been anxiously awaiting today's show. I first saw Ray when he came to the AWA. He worked with Red Bastien in a match in Moline, Illinois at the ballpark. They put on a spectacular match, and I'd never seen some of the moves before that they used. That reminds me of something about Red. My friends and I who were with me still remember this match, and it was 30 years ago, and none of them are fans anymore, but we still talk about that match. When Ray Stevens, Nick Bockwinkel, and Bobby Heenan worked together for Vern, they were the best tag team I'd ever seen, and even though wrestling has certainly changed a lot since then, I still consider them the best tag team I ever saw. They never had a bad match or a boring match. Both Nick and Ray were the epitome of greatness, and Bobby was perfect as their manager. He was also a very good worker, very underrated as a worker. I was wrestling for Nick Goulas and some independent groups in the South back then, but I lived in Minneapolis, so I'd watch Nick, Ray, and Bobby and try to steal what they could do in Tennessee and Kentucky, where the fans had never seen them before. I guess I would also steal Billy Graham's lines from his great interviews because he got tremendous heat. Ray will always stand out in my mind as a tough SOB. I saw him work with a broken hand and other injuries that would sideline today's wrestlers and take great bumps even though he was injured. All your guests today exemplify the greatness that was once wrestling and keep the shows coming. Thank you very much. And Red, you know, he brought something up. I never talked to you about this, but when I was a kid, I used to watch you wrestle. And you did this flying head scissors move that nobody has probably ever done since, and I don't know why no one has, because it was the coolest looking flying head scissors I've ever seen.
Well, I told the Destroyer here just not too long ago. I asked him. I said he asked me how my hips were. You know, as you well know, I got artificial hips, and and I said, well, if you drop to your knees, I'll head scissor you right here. And he said, I always did. Oh, man. Big build-up for a big letdown.
No, but have you ever, because I know you trained a lot of guys, I mean, you know, I thought with all the high flyers that we have in wrestling now, I never saw anyone, you know, I mean, I've seen people do a lot of great moves, but, I've never seen anyone duplicate that one move.
Well, I haven't seen it either. And I don't know why it wasn't all that difficult, because I see some of these high-risk moves these young guys are taking now, and I tell you, I'm a god. I just don't understand how they can do all this. I'm sure that their careers are not going to last as long as mine did, because they're taking some career-ending moves there that I wouldn't even do, you know.
I'll tell you something about Red. You know the move where Carpante would stand on the top rope and flip to his feet in the middle of the ring? And all the stuff you see the Mexican wrestlers do. Red Bastien could do all that stuff when he was in the ring. He could do everything they could do.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bobby, before we got Billy Graham on the line. We're gonna get to him in just a second. Bobby, I want to ask you one thing, because you were a big bum taker in your day, and your neck hurts real bad, and you had all the neck problems and everything. What would, if looking back, and if you had advice for some of these younger wrestlers, what would you tell them what you could do and can't do, and what you would stop doing just for their, so when they get to be your age, they're in one piece, so to speak. And then, Red, I'm kind of curious about what you would say about that as well.
Okay.
Well, you can't tell a guy anything. They're going to do what they want to do. People used to tell me not to take all those goofy bumps and stuff, but when you get in there, you just do it. You can't tell them anything. Don't forget the equipment we worked on in those days. A lot of the rings were boxing rings. They were rings that belonged to the armory or some buildings. They weren't kept up. They were pieces of junk. And it didn't have good quality equipment to work on. The guys I would tell them now, I'd say, instead of taking 35 bumps a night, take 3 good ones at the right time. Learn how to perform. That's the best thing you can tell them, because they're going out there and they're taking all those high-risk moves, and after you've seen about 10 of them in a row, they don't mean nothing.
And you don't remember the previous 9.
Yeah, you can't remember back that far.
Red, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with Bobby. I see some of these moves that they're doing, and they're life-threatening, and I don't think they're necessary. Personally, the people don't come there to see someone get killed.
No.
They come there to be entertained.
I took a bump one night out on the table, over the top rope, just to land on the table. And the table broke, and my leg went through it, and I cut below my knee to the shin, to the bone, because it's a Formica table. And every time I see these guys throw each other through tables, I'm thinking eventually a piece or that leg is going to puncture their lungs, or something bad's going to happen. I mean, you got a ring that's padded with ropes. Why use a table?
Yeah. Just, I agree with Bobby. they're taking these risks and everything like that. But it reminds me, of Ray Stevens, and we'll get back to him a little bit. He came down to Texas. Him and Nick Bockwinkel came down, and in the dressing room, he says, we're in Fort Worth, Texas, and they had a ring there that it was so hard, that thing. I think they built the ring, and then they built the building around it, because I don't think they could take it down. I don't know. It was like concrete. So Ray Stevens said to me, he said, how's this ring for bumps? And I said, it's great. He come back in, he's holding his back, and he's got, oh, my God. He said, I thought you said this ring was good for bumps. I said, yeah, but for giving them. Not taking them. Oh, he went crazy.
Like Crusher came back from the ring one night in St. Louis. Remember how hard that ring was in St. Louis?
Oh.
I said, I know how we can get it. I told Pat O'Connor, I said, I know how we can get a new ring here. He said, how? I said, every Friday night that we're here, right after the national anthem, have Sam Mushnick take a slam. I'll bet you there's a new ring here next week.
How did Ray's body hold up? Because he took some pretty incredible bumps for that time period.
Crazy glue and Scotch tape.
I want to bring on.
I'd like to say that Ray was.
Okay, go ahead.
Ray did take some hellacious bumps, but they were all calculated. He was a fascinating guy. He could land and not hurt himself, but he knew what he was doing all the time.
He was just gifted.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to bring on Nick Bockwinkel and superstar Billy Graham, and we'll go with Billy first. Billy, when you broke into wrestling, the first territory, I guess, that you got the big push would be here in San Francisco. And I know we've talked over the years many times. Ray Stevens was your idol in wrestling.
Oh yes. Let me first say hello to Red and Bobby. It's good to hear. I just talked to Red
and
last week.
Nick Bockwinkel's on as well.
It's good to hear Bobby Heenan's voice again, man.
Billy, you still got those big work boots?
And Ray Stevens, he was my wrestling idol, and speaking of bumps and tremendous moves, Red Bastien, when I did first come to the San Francisco territory, Red was there. I don't know for what length of period of time in the beginning of '71, but I know I saw him in a few matches at the Cow Palace, and looking from behind the curtain, as I was ordered to do by Roy Scheidt to watch every match, and the moves are phenomenal, and what Red possessed was not only the ability to do these phenomenal moves and bumps, but he had the ability to make it look almost effortlessly and like a pro gymnast almost, and so I'd have to rate Red ahead of his time as far as bump taking. I don't think I ever saw him take the bump that Ray did, as I heard you guys talking earlier, that somersault in the turnbuckle over the top onto the floor. I know Rich.
Shawn Michaels was the one who did that a lot.
His signature move later, but someone asked me just recently that they heard that Ray Stevens could take that bump, that somersault over the top, and then blade himself before he hit the mat on the way down and do the bump and get juice all at the same time. And I said, well, I never saw him get the juice on the way down, but the bump was phenomenal. And Red will probably remember this, that ring, and even Dave, you might recall, if you really check your memory, that ring in the Cow Palace was extra high.
Oh yeah.
Is that right, Red? Am I right about that?
It was. I remember.
Yeah.
I couldn't see who was in the ring.
I could even see the action in the middle of the ring.
I used to sit at ringside, and it was and when you would sit at ringside, the Cow Palace, it was like one of the worst views for that very reason, because the ring was so high.
Especially when guys got down to mat level and did some work on the mat, exchanging holds and things like that, but because you couldn't see up and across, it was like you needed a periscope to see the action in the ring. But the thing was so high, it scared me at first. It was like climbing up onto like a high. You're going to the high wire act on at a circus or something. But I just back to Ray. Yeah, he was my wrestling idol, and he that of course that signature somersault in the corner up over the top onto the floor was a phenomenal move, and you know, I don't think anyone's ever done it better than I guess Ray had to be the originator of the move. I don't know.
I don't know. Red, was he the originator of that?
It goes even further back than that.
He was the first guy that I ever saw do it.
It wasn't Crusher.
I
saw Crusher last year. I said, you know, you could still work. You haven't lost a step.
To do it, I would have turned my back and hit the back buckle. I hit the buckle. But Ray was just incredibly on the bumps he took. You know, there was like no fear. And when you did that thing, that somersault over the top, and you had to clear the ring post on the way out and down also, and it was so smooth, it was scary, you know, and like I said, the height of that ring was ridiculous, but you know, moving forward to where we are now, Monday night, I saw a clip on Raw of I guess it was Shane getting suplexed into that logo.
Oh boy!
The first time he didn't break, and he hit, and he went down. I know he landed on his head and his shoulder, and it looked like he could have broke his neck right there. And then they showed the clip again, and then they went through the breakaway plexiglass or whatever they had there, and he landed on his back. But the first one, he just bounced off that thing and went straight down. Just like Bruno did in the Garden when Stan Hansen gave him that weird sideways scissor body slam and dropped him dead on his neck, on his head. And, you know, it's like these guys are now, not to get away from Ray, because I know it's the subject of the show, but you guys were reflecting on the bumps that they're taking now. It's like, why are they doing it? Well, I think they've got so caught up in it, and with the evolution of the sport and the business, that the bar has been raised so high that it's almost like they're in competition with one another. And if you don't take a high risk move or a bump, you're not going to get a spot on top or near the top if you don't do these insane moves. And now the crowd is like, you know, the Romans sitting in the Colosseum with the gladiators and the lions throwing the Christians to the lions, and you know, bloodthirsty, you know, things that actually happen, and that's the way the fans are now. You know, you say that they don't want to really see anybody get hurt, but I think the mindset is just like when they go to Indianapolis 500 or Daytona, and they're waiting for a race driver going 250 miles an hour to go out of control and roll his car about 10 times and end up upside down in a fiery crash and get killed. They're bloodthirsty, and that's what
Billy, hold up for a second.
Taste. It's like they've got a taste of this high risk moves and these unbelievable feats that these guys do, and they'll never be satisfied. The only way you can get rid of them it would be a slow weaning off by Vince. Vince would have to make the call, I think, Dave, you know, and to wean the matter of fact, I think you wrote about that about a year and a half ago in one of your newsletters. That
well, he did
go out at one time to
he did cut back on dropping people on their head.
Is that true?
Yeah, they ban, you know, they don't use pile drivers. They won't do what moves, Brian? Won't they?
I think it's anything where you go straight down on your head and neck, like you know, the tombstone.
Yeah, the various forms of pile drivers, because you almost never see them, and when you do, it's always for like a special reason.
Right.
You know, Billy, hold up a second.
And another move that right at the beginning of that show of Raw on Monday night, the match where they went back in the
the hardcore match.
The two guys and they gave each other all the bumps on the floor on the aluminum ladder, and then he put the two tables together, and he went up and on top of the ladder and gave him the big elbow drop on top.
That's Test and Rhino.
The tables split apart.
He put the tables the wrong way.
They went right between the tables and landed like full force on the cement. I thought they were going to hit for a spot for a table to break, but maybe they had a plan for the tables to split, but that looked like
I doubt it.
Horribly dangerous
I
move. And they showed the replay, and the tables flew apart, and they both landed, on the cement with that move. And I mean, hey, you're only an inch away, from a concussion or being killed with your head bouncing off the cement floor. I mean,
I want to get Nick Bockwinkel on real quick. Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just fine. How are all you guys?
We're doing really good.
Nick, glad to hear your voice. Sir Robert.
How you doing, Nick?
Billy.
Hi, Nick.
And Nick, when did you first cross paths with Ray Stevens? I mean, everyone probably remembers the best in the early 70s when you guys were a tag team for many years, but you crossed paths with him long before that.
Right. That would have been Indianapolis, Indiana, 1959, 1960, when he was part of the Shires brothers. And at that time, Jim Barnett was the promoter in Indianapolis and in the surrounding area. And so I was teamed up with Joe Blanchard at that time. and Ray, like I say, was teamed up with Roy Shires.
And when he came to the AWA, you guys were hooked up pretty quick. Whose idea was that? Was it your idea, his idea, or Vern?
That was Vern and Wally came to me, and I'm sure they went to him, and they said, "Would you mind being teamed up with Ray?" And I said, "No, not a problem," And likewise, I'm sure they asked him, and so boom. And then in short order, I think Sir Robert, didn't you? And Lanza, he went someplace.
Jack and I left in '71. And I came back in '74 and managed you guys.
Oh, you came back in '74?
Yeah.
Okay, so then then he teamed up Ray and I, and then I guess it was in '74 when Bobby came back that he then teamed. He put Bobby with they put Bobby with Ray and I, and then we had a nice run for about around 4 or 5 years then.
When you guys teamed, you were like AWA Tag Team Champions several different times.
Correct.
But you actually pretty much, I would say at that period, had the rep for being, the premier tag team in pretty much all of wrestling. You went to Florida, Texas. There were a lot of places where you would come in during that period.
This was true. I guess for whatever reason, we were good enough and established a strong enough rep that we went to Florida, and we went down to Texas quite a bit. And this was, I think, then before Bobby came on board. This would have been before '74. So that in '72, '71, '2, and '3, we did go to several different places, which I think was a compliment to both Ray and myself for whatever the reasons were that we were getting the job done.
Now, later, you, of course, became the singles world champion of the AWA, so it made for the natural rivalry. You had many, many matches. How would you rate, and Ray probably would have been, by this point, past the age of 40, how would you rate Ray as far as your opponents and everything like that?
As far as I was concerned, I considered Ray to probably be the premier worker that the profession had. He was far better than I as far as being a worker. There's no question in my mind about that. I think the only difference between Ray and I, why Ray wouldn't have been the world champion, was because I was, I think, more serious. I dedicated myself more to wanting to learn and do my own thing and establish my own entity. Had Ray at any point decided he wanted to, so to speak, get in shape and really push the envelope, I don't think there was anybody in the profession that could have touched him because he had probably the best ring sense of anybody I ever was with, and I was still learning from him after we had been partners for years. He was just, God bless him, he was just that good. And I remember one time, I think it was Denver, I'm doing something in the ring, and Ray standing on the apron, and I kept watching him, glancing over, and he was flirting with some gorgeous girl at about the 4th row, paying no attention to what I was doing, no attention to the match, so to speak. And yet when I tagged him, he came in and instinctively went right to whatever I had been doing, followed up perfectly, and it was almost like, if I hadn't paid any more attention to it than him, I'd have been a lost soul when I came in, or I would have lost the momentum. Not Ray.
What else is new, Nick?
Pardon? Well, Rodney, what was that?
I said, what else is new?
There you go. So, but I mean, Ray was just that. He was just that good.
Billy, I wanted to ask you this question because it's a story that when you very early in your career, you wrestled Ray Stevens at the Cow Palace a couple of times, and I believe it was the first. In fact, I remember it was the first time you would have wrestled him in the main event at the Cow Palace. You actually went in the ring with 2 finishes, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And that might have been a first. It was a 2 finish because the television before the show in the Cow Palace, I had a bad match with Pat Barrett, Irishman Pat Barrett. I know all you guys remember Pat Barrett. And I wasn't aggressive enough, and I didn't look like I had the killer instinct. And when the match was over on television, Shires caught me in the hallway of the television studio in Sacramento, and just put me up against the wall and said, "Your match was horrible." And if the house falls, he instinctively knew. Shires was so brilliant that he instinctively knew that the house could possibly fall because of my bad performance on that during that match. And he said, if that house falls, I'm gonna fine you $1,000. It falls from the previous show. And sure enough, that night while I was in the dressing room with Ray, going over the match, Shires comes in, sits down, says, "Graham, you're fined $1,000. The house is dropped." And he says, "I'm going to give you guys 2 finishes, and it's going to be up to Stevens to call the finish. If the match is crappy and it's a no good match, Ray's going to beat you and pin you 1, 2, 3 right in the middle of the ring. And if the match is decent and good enough for return, we'll work the return finish." And so he gave us the return finish and the option, and told Ray Stevens, "Ray, you're going to have to make the call. You are going to make the call in the ring during the match." And so I figured right there, well, I'm going down 1-3, which I didn't care. I'd do a job for Ray Stevens anywhere, and be happy to do it. And but as soon as Shires left the locker room, stormed out. Ray told me, "Don't pay any attention to Shires. We're going to go for the return finish." and he actually got juice. This is a really amazing thing about that. We worked the return finish right from the start. And of course, Ray worked around me. He could have a match with a punching bag. He could have a match with a telephone pole. His ability was so great. But he actually did a blade job. And when we got back to during the match and for the return, got back to the locker room, and Shires was steaming at Stevens, saying, "Why? Who told you to do a blade job to get color?" And Ray said, "Well, I wanted to make sure." He said the match was good enough. He said, "I wanted to make sure we really had a good shot at a good return and bring the house back up." And Shire said, "Well, I didn't tell you to get juice." And Ray said, "Well, you told me to make the calls out there, and I made the calls." And only Ray Stevens could have got away with that in San Francisco. Maybe Pat Patterson, but for sure only Ray Stevens. Because Shires dictated everything that you did, But so that was it. We were given 2 finishes, man, and I was fine after the match, and when Shires brought the checks around about a week or 10 days later, somewhere down in Fresno, I think I got the check for the Cow Palace. It was $1,000 deducted off the check. I think I might have made about $2,000 on top or something, maybe $2,500 with Ray, and there was $1,000 of it gone. So Shires was a man of his word, So, but it was a 2-finish match. But,
Red, I wanted to ask you, what was the story with 71-ish when Ray was the king of San Francisco? He'd been there for 10, 11 years. And he moved to Minneapolis. Was it just the time? Was it just, Vern just made him a good offer? What was the story behind that?
Well, first of all, Ray had been there for a long time, and I'd left and gone up to Minneapolis. I got pissed off at Roy Shire, who I had very little respect for. I had respect for his ability as a manager and a promoter, but for him as a person, I had none whatsoever because he was an asshole, wasn't he? Yeah. And so, anyway, I was up in Minneapolis, and
And I called up Ray and asked him. I said, Ray, you want to come up here to Minneapolis? I said, man, the guy treats you with respect here and everything like that. He's got a good territory. He runs a nice ship here. And I said, would you like to come up? And he says, well, I don't know. I'll think about it. And so it wasn't about a little while later, a week, maybe something like that. He gave me a call and said he wanted to come up. So and we put it together. Did Vern talk to you about Ray Stevens, or was that kind of like you acting on your own and talking to Vern and go, hey, we can get Ray Stevens in? Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think I just called Ray because I think there was a spot for him, and I called him, and then I talked with Vern, and I said, Ray is available. If I remember right, it's been a while, but anyway, first of all, let me say something. I would have, we got some pretty lofty company that I'm here with, Billy Graham, Nick Bockwinkel, and Bobby Heenan. I'm honored to be on the same radio program with these guys. And the other thing is, I'd like to plug Cauliflower Alley Club a little bit, if I may, Dave.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, as everybody here knows that that the Cauliflower Alley Club has been in existence for 35 years, and it's an organization with wrestlers that have retired mostly, and we even though we do accept guys that haven't been retired, they're still active. And it comes out of we have an annual meeting in Las Vegas, Nevada, and by the way, Nick Bockwinkel is the vice president there, and so I'm sure Nick has got a few things that he'd like to put in about that too. We have a reunion this coming February, and it's not just for the wrestlers, it's for the fans as well. So we would like to see some fans there. It's at the Riviera Hotel there on the Strip, right on the Strip, and it gives everybody a reason to go to Las Vegas.
What did we have last year, Red? Almost over 500 people?
We had about 500 there last year.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, Bobby did the MC.
Yeah, Bobby was there. He helped out and did a wonderful job, I might add, like he always does. He's done that for so many years. Good job at everything we always expected of him.
And doing that for Cauliflower was just like working for Wally in those days. I still didn't get paid.
Well, let me address that, if I may. The Cauliflower Alley Club is a not profitable organization, and so we don't make any money. We get money in from our memberships and stuff like that, and then of course we donate it to people who need it and stuff like that.
Well, just like a couple months ago, Sir Oliver Humperdinck used to manage, and he had a triple bypass surgery. And the guy who lives in Key West, he doesn't have a dime. Flat ass broke. Cauliflower and Red Bastien sent the man $1,000. So,
that's what
it's a good organization. It's a great organization.
I want to get Ric Flair on because I want to thank you, Rick, under the circumstances, for coming on.
I'm glad to be with you, Dave.
Rick, how are you doing? Bobby.
Bobby, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing?
Good, man. I just heard you and Red talking. I didn't know you guys were going to be on the show. I can't talk about Ray Stevens at the same time you guys are, because I didn't go to any parties you guys went to.
You had your own.
I hate you, Heenan. I'm not talking on the air with you on the air.
Want to talk about Boston?
No. This is not going to be good, Dave.
Rick, real quick before we start talking about Ray Stevens and everything, I want to ask, what have you been up to, and what's coming up for your future?
Well, actually, I've just really been doing nothing. I've, as you know, the restrictions put down on the guys that are under contract by, with the Time Warner that were independent contractors, not the employees, are such that they're not letting us do anything. Maybe an occasional autograph session or appearance, but anything wrestling related, they're not letting us do it. So, it's a big part of my life that I miss, but at the same time, I'm very fortunate to still be getting paid by them, and I'm just having a good time with my kids. I've been real active with them a lot in the last couple of years, and now I've got 7 days full access to them, sometimes much to their dismay, but I'm having a good time with them, and it's just been a great summer so far. So I'm not really worried about it. I think that as wrestling business always seems to work its way through any kind of problem, and God only knows between Bobby, myself, and Red, we've seen a lot in this business, and somehow everything works out for the best. And if it's meant for me to be back in it and working with those guys, it'll happen. I'd like to be there, but if it doesn't, it won't be the end of the world. I had a lot of fun, and I had a great but I think it was a great career, and had the good fortune of meeting and being around a lot of guys like the two guys you have on the phone tonight. And
we also have Nick Bockwinkel and Billy Graham on the phone too.
All right, Nick, Billy, how are you guys?
Good, Hi, Rick. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, those are two more guys, and I mean we've seen it all, and I think they know the business goes through cycles, and I feel like whatever's going to happen will be good.
Rick, when you first broke in, it was AWA, and actually all these guys were around right when you first broke in, and Ray was like, what was it like watching these guys, and of course, probably Ray Stevens one of the bigger influences on your career.
Well, let me tell you, I used to, when I was in college, as everybody knows, I've made it through 1 year, but I used to take all my friends down, which at that time, two of them were the Goldberg boys, Bill's older brothers, Mike and Steve. I'd drag them down once in a while. My favorite match, back in those days was Nick and Ray against Cortez and Red. I mean, I loved it. I mean, at the same time...
Well, Red must have been a hell of a worker then, and Ray, and Nick. The other three guys must have been hell workers.
Yeah, but I mean, it was,
I heard about Cortez.
At the same time, they had the unfortunate car wreck and all that, but I loved that match, and I got to go on that 7th Street gym, and I got to meet, all the guys there. I don't think Ray was in there a lot, but Ray didn't need to be. You know what I mean? Ray was Ray Stevens, and as I told 1,000 people, I'd sit there all night long waiting for Ray to beg off in that corner, and for someone to throw him in, man. And if he didn't do it, I was upset about it, So
you made sure that you did it. You made sure that when you were a wrestler, you did that in every match.
I wouldn't leave it out. And my rationale was, someone say to me, Christ, that's like, why do you do that every night? And I'd say, well, why do you take an arm drag every night? Why do you take it, get taken over in a headlock? I mean, there's 1,000 people that did with wrestling. It was just something I learned how to do, and, I know that I was disappointed if I didn't see Ray do it as a fan watching Ray, and it just, like different things, like when I thought Red Bastien threw the greatest head scissors of all time. I mean, Greg Gagne.
We were talking about that.
Yeah, Greg Gagne spent 10 years trying to duplicate Red's. No, I'm paying him a compliment. It's just things that were great in the business. I mean, Billy Graham was the first guy to come along with that body. I mean, it really got that kind of recognition from it. And Billy was ahead of his time. I mean, it was a great time. Minneapolis at that time, I thought, and this is before I ever knew what the NWA was or the World Wrestling Federation, but I think Vern had all the talent in the world right there, and all but probably the best that was on the marketplace in that point in time. And I mean, everybody's going to say they didn't have Bruno Sammartino and people like that, but I don't think that Bruno. I think Bruno. I shouldn't say that. I just don't think that he would have been the star in the AWA that he was with another company. There just were so many great performers there at that time.
Anyway,
may I say something to Flair?
Go ahead, Red.
Okay, Rick. We got Billy Graham here, Bockwinkel and Heenan, and maybe some other guys are going to come on. I don't know, but all these guys belong to the Cauliflower Alley Club. When are you going to join the Cauliflower Alley Club?
I'm not retired yet, man.
We have a vacancy
I still
for
want
you.
to wrestle the Rock one time, man.
Rick, what's the time limit right now as far as your contract? Like, how much longer?
20 months.
20 months, okay.
If I had every Monday night between now and 20 months from now with Bobby Heenan, I wouldn't live that long. If I had to do with Bobby and Gene Oakland every Monday night again for the next 20 months, I wouldn't make it to the Cauliflower Alley Club.
I'd rather blindfold myself and cross the interstate.
No, Red, I'll tell you what, it's not that I haven't wanted to be part of it. My problem is just been time management, and I know that it's really gotten to the point where I need to participate, and I'm ashamed to tell you that I haven't, but I will in the future. And I'm saying that on the air right now and go on record as saying that.
All right, my man.
Okay.
I'm going to hold you to it.
Now, when is the first one? Next one coming up?
It's going to be in February at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas, and it's going to be.
God, that already doesn't work.
It's going to be a slam dunk. Incidentally, while we're on that subject, Billy Graham, you're writing a book, and we're going to have it's going to be the book thing this year because everybody that's written a book about wrestling or every wrestler that has written a book about anything else, we're going to have those books on sale there. so the fans can come there and buy the books, get a signed autograph and everything like that. So, Billy, are you going to have your book ready?
Yeah, well, I hope to. I've had a lot of setbacks health-wise, as some of you guys know. I know Dave does. I've contracted hepatitis C, and it is really especially this last 3 or 4 months, it's played havoc on my immune system, and it's just drained me of all energy and fatigue. And I go through. It seems like I go through sets of time frames where I'm just the hepatitis C is so strong in my system that it just shuts down my immune system, and I have a lot of problems. Fatigue being one of the main ones, but I managed to really see the end of the book now, and I'm really hoping that I will have it finished. There's no reason I shouldn't if I don't have another serious setback with hepatitis C to stymie my time that I need to keep on writing. I will say this one thing that about books. I know I read in one of Dave's newsletters that Rick, you're gonna be having a book come out, I think, and on your career, and I know that's going to be a fascinating book. And but if I could tell you what I've learned, I know some guys need a ghostwriter to help them write the book, because it's not an easy thing. I happen to be an artist. I'm able to put a little bit of paint down on the canvas and make a rock look like a rock out here in the desert, but writing a book is something like an art form, and I found that it's a tremendous outlet, and if you've already started, I know Mike Mooneyham told me that he was going to help be involved in writing your book also with you, but try to get as much of your own words in that book as possible, because I know it's just a great thing to do. It's something that's so unique. Writing your autobiography is it's just an incredible insight to yourself. And some things have come up that I haven't particularly liked to relive in my mind while writing this autobiography, but it's a cleansing also. But I think the fans, just like Mankind's book, Mick Foley writing his in his own words, I think the fans really appreciate really much more a person who can put a lot of the book in their own words and know that it came right out of their mouth instead of a ghostwriter. But of course, like I said, if not everybody can write a book, and not everybody can paint a portrait like Steve Strong, and so, but when you do, really try to, I think you'll enjoy trying to put a lot of the words down on tape, or in my case, I handwrite every word, then give it to Valerie, and she transcribes it on the computer, and then I send it to a friend of mine in Southern California to edit, cross the T's and dot the I's and correct the spelling, but I'm really anxious to get that book. And do you have any? What's the latest on your book, Rick?
Well, actually, it's the irony of you just bringing it up, or Red bringing it up. I just signed the contract with the company. It's been put on hold about 3 different times, basically due to the difference in structure of the wrestling business per se, and then the fact that I was with a publisher that published another book that didn't do very well. So my agent is out there. A fellow by the name of Barry Bloom was done a nice job for me. They found another publisher, and I actually started to work on it, as Dave knows, about almost maybe 8-9 months ago, and then the deal with the publisher changed around, and I wasn't happy with it, and I just kind of thought that the marketplace, just being a wrestler and being a fan and being someone that was pretty close to the business, I thought the marketplace was stale on books, period. So I kind of lost interest in the project, but they talked me back in, they talked me into doing it again. So
we're actually going to start on it in the next couple of weeks again, and
good.
I have to have it ready by March 1st. Well, a lot of what you're saying, I'm aware of, and the first couple chapters were pretty much stuff that I just said, off the top of my head and just in memories, and that's the hard part about the business. The best part about the business you can't write about, because either you get divorced or people think it's science fiction anyway. So,
yeah,
and that's the God's honest truth. If I tried to tell them a night I had out with Ray Stevens once in a while, people think I was a liar. Or
no, you'd be indicted.
Huh?
Stranger than fiction.
Yeah, I mean, we had so much fun, and the business itself was just so much fun. I mean, the collection of guys, I mean, we got Nick on the phone, and Billy Graham, and Red Bastien, and Bobby Heenan. And let me just say something about Bobby Heenan. I'm not trying to stray away from the subject, but as much time as I put in trying to learn how to do raise bump, I did with Bobby and could never do it. And that bump that Bobby Heenan took for 20 years, or about 25 years, backwards over the top rope was another phenomenal part of our business for me. And Bobby knows that, because Bobby was trying to teach it to me in 1991. And finally just said, forget it. If you can't do that for 25 years, you ain't going to learn it.
I told you how simple it was. Pretend you're at home and try to get over the fence to get out. Same thing.
Speaking about books again, real quick, I really hope you're able to finish it, because I know there'll be just tons and tons of fans who will want to read your autobiography.
Well, thank you, but I'm going to work hard on it and do it.
I spoke with Bret Hart some time ago now, and he told me, concerning his autobiography, that years and years ago he had planned on writing a book. He had really had great insight, and that he had audio taped many road trips to different towns.
Is this Bret? Are you talking about Bret Hart?
So he has a tremendous library of audio tapes going back years and years when he first started for his father in Calgary. So
yeah, you are talking about Bret Hart. Okay, so make that clear. Because Bret Hart had told me that he had taped a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you know Stu Hart wrote a book?
No.
200 pages of Short
now, Bobby, you've talked about a book, a couple of times
I'm
with us
working
before.
on one right now. I have a publisher out of Chicago, and I've got a guy who's helping me write it. And I'm just telling him there's two kinds of books. I want to do one about my life, my family, how I grew up, what happened to me along the way. I also want to do a wrestling book about the stories and the fun. And like Rick was saying, or Billy was saying, you can't really tell all the stories. But you can't just make up guys' names like Bill Smith and I wrestled here.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean nothing. You have to be truthful, and you have to tell the people the fun side, the dressing rooms, the cars, the airplanes, the hotels. That's the fun part. The ring stuff isn't that much fun.
I got a question for you guys. Because Rick's talking about, what was the most fun era for all of you guys in wrestling?
I'll start off on that. For me, I was just telling Valerie the other day, just maybe yesterday probably, that I miss and think about the Minneapolis, the 3 years I spent in Minneapolis as the most fun in the business. And maybe it's because, thanks to Red Bastien calling Ray Stevens to come up, well then in return, Ray Stevens called me to come up and to Minneapolis, and my career just skyrocketed. And meeting Rick when he was fresh out of college and making the trips with Ivan Koloff, and I do agree with Ric Flair when he says earlier that probably the group of talent, the wealth of talent that was amassed at that time in the AWA for Vern Gagne was probably unparalleled in the business at that time. And the 72, 73, 74 time frame for me was absolutely the most fun and enjoyable in the business. I became my own identity. I created myself. I really progressed. Ric Flair took me to a guy named Warren Teddy who made home gym equipment, and I filled up my basement with with all kinds of equipment, weightlifting equipment, and solid dumbbells from 15 pounds to 150 pounds. And it was just the best time, even including the time when I was given the strap from Bruno for that almost a year run in New York. I still say that Minneapolis was the most fun and enjoyable time out of my whole entire wrestling career.
Yeah.
Nick, I want to go with you, Nick.
I would say the 17 years I was in the AWA, when I was with Ray and Bobby, and Bobby and I, when I was in the single championship thing, I would just venture to say that in all my career, those were the best years that I enjoyed the most.
And Bobby, what about you?
I would have to say this. It's two different eras. I like the 70s because from 71, I was back in Indianapolis till 74, and from 74 to 80, I was in Minneapolis. So I had the best of both. I had my home life in Indianapolis and all my friends, and plus I had a bunch of great friends in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, you didn't work every day. Sometimes you work 5, 6 days, 7 days a week, and some days weeks you work 3 or 4 days. But I think everybody got along. They're great, and it was a real fun time. And New York was fun in the 80s because everything was different with TNT and with going on this show and doing this and that. It was exciting and different. But to be wrestle, I think the thing I missed about the 80s was we didn't ride in cars like you did in the 70s. That was the fun part.
It's interesting you talk about that because, that aspect of wrestling, not completely, but largely is gone because most of the big trips are on the plane.
Well, that's where you wanted to work in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wanted to do interviews, you listened to other people talk, and that's how you learned.
Rick, you're someone who's bridged both eras. What do you think is things that you miss as far as, and you think that the guys who are coming up today are missing, and what do you think are the things that the guys coming up today have that's an advantage of when you came up and you go, God, when I came up, I wish we had this?
Well, that's just it. I couldn't have wanted for any more than I had, in Minneapolis. That's what's hard for me to explain to people. It seems so long ago, but it was such, the 72, 73, 70, a little bit of 74 before I left. It was just a tremendous time. I can't, number one, I was around with the guys I thought were probably the greatest workers, of their era or a lot of eras. Number two, I had so much fun with them, and I was just a kid, and they treated me like I was one of them, and all of them are on the phone right now tonight, and a bunch more like Ivan Koloff and that. But number three is that they took the time. They knew that if you're interested in the business, they took the time to point things out to you. But it wasn't a lecture. It wasn't a demeaning thing. They weren't pulled aside. They just knew, hey, if you liked it, they took the time to tell you something, and they appreciated it. Now, in this business, there's a few guys. I shouldn't say there's more than a few. There are a few guys that want to learn. There are a lot of guys that need to learn that don't know it. And there's a lot of guys that are respectful and a lot of guys that aren't respectful. When I started, you would never have ever thought about being anything but respectful and just wanted to be part of it if you were lucky enough. And I guess that's what I'm saying is so much different. There was so much there, but the guys were so much willinger. Were willing to take you under their wing or whatever it was. Whether it was, Billy brought up a story about Ward and Teddy, and that was just something I wanted to do. I was glad to be in Minneapolis. I'm glad to be part of his life at that level. But I can remember, Billy Graham didn't drink at all. He went and had a glass of wine with me one night at a place in Moline, Illinois. Remember that, Billy?
Oh yeah.
He'd say, "Okay, I'll have one glass of wine with you."
Billy, the town has never been the same.
Huh?
The town has never been the same.
Yeah, I've heard my vendor.
No, but
I've heard my vendor with the pokey and the eggs.
I couldn't wait to get to the bar with Ray and Bobby and Nick and Red and everybody else. I couldn't wait, but at the same time, if Billy Graham asked me to go have dinner with him, like he took me and my dad to dinner in New York that time. Those are things that are in my life that nobody even knows about because I can't tell anybody because they can't relate to it. And that's what I miss. I can relate. Bobby Heenan and I have been together a lot in the last 10, 12 years. Since 91. And I was with Ray a lot, and Red actually quite a bit in the late 70s, early 80s in the Charlotte. So I've had the good fortune of seeing them all. Then I saw Nick, periodically, and Nick and I worked in Winnipeg once, and we were both champions. And it just was a tremendous time. And outside of the time I had with the Horsemen, which was the middle 80s, I can't remember a better time I had in life. It certainly hasn't been the last 5 years.
No, it hasn't.
It's funny when you say that because, in many ways, because of the notoriety of the business, outside the business notoriety the last 5 years, you probably, in many ways, had more than even your time at the top, in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, and financially, as far as guaranteed money, certainly you were making more guaranteed money than
yes.
that.
No, that part of it, I'm kind of was answering a question about what part of the business I like. I will never knock the financial reward, and I'll never knock anything that they've done for me, because I've been able to hang on way past, as Ray Stevens would say, Stevens would tell me that if I lived to be 35, I'd be overstaying my welcome, So I've overstayed my welcome by about 17 years.
I wouldn't go that far.
but I've just had a great time, and just thinking about the names and the guys that were on the phone tonight. I've got a story for every one of them, and it could be a personal story, it can be a wrestling story, it can be a story talking about how good they were one night in the ring or how much fun they were to be with. And if you look around now, my contemporary guys, a lot of them, I hate to say, a lot of them are gone. The guys that were my contemporaries that I was with a lot, like Dick Murdoch, I can go on and on with guys that have either had real health problems or guys that are hurting real bad right now. I'm not going to, throw a bunch of names out, but you guys know who they are, and it's a sad time. Another great guy in that time, and I'll tell you a great story. I used to hate it when they made me wrestle Larry Henning, but Larry was part of that same crew, And this is my first couple of matches. So George Godasky was the referee, so Larry grabbed me, and he'd grab me and say, when I hit you, sell it, right? So he'd just bend me over the rope and knock the crap out of me, and I'd fall down, and he'd grab me and say, I told you not to sell it. So then I'd look at the referee and look at George. He had me horrified at that point. I think I heard him wrong. So he'd tell me again and say, sell it, right? Or don't sell it, right? So then I wouldn't sell it. He grabbed me and threw me on the floor. And he looked at George Gatsby, he said, the kid don't want to learn the business. Then he'd pull me back in, and while he didn't just go on for 10 minutes, he'd just be laughing. Then he'd say, hey, listen, kid, pretend it's a Greyhound bus leave a driving to me. We're never going to have an experience like that. It was just a fun time, and I got 1,000 stories like that. About Bobby Heenan and Nick and Ray and Red.
Ray and I are driving one night in the car. So I just wanted to know, Ray was married to a lady wrestler. And her name was, Red Teresa?
Teresa Fee.
Yeah, and she was older than Ray. And she was tough. She was kind of like a cross between George Gordienko and Bo Curry. So I said, Ray, what's it like being married to a woman wrestler? He said, I have her on her knees twice a week begging. I said, did you hit her? He said, no, she's telling me to come out from under the bed and fight like a man. That was Ray. And I asked Ray once, I said, Ray, how old were you when you had your first lady? He said, 6 years old. I said, Ray, 6? Where did you take her? He said, I don't know, I was too drunk to remember. That was Ray Stevens.
That's how he'd tell that. He'd tell that story, and he'd laugh harder than hell.
Oh, yeah. Remember you were talking before, Red, about you calling Ray to come to Minneapolis?
I beg your pardon?
Remember when you said you called Ray to come to Minnie?
Yes.
And then, Billy, you said that Ray called you to come to Minnie.
Yes.
Nick?
Yeah.
You remember when Vern called you and said, how much longer are you staying?
Hey, let me tell you a story, a quick story that Ray Stevens told in the locker room on my first day in the territory in San Jose. It's amazing that that year 71, this is a tribute show to Ray Stevens. That year I spent in San Francisco with Ray and Peter Maiva and Pat Patterson, my tag team partner, who really turned out to be my mentor that year. It just is embedded in my memory bank like I can almost remember every word of every day. And of course, Ray Stevens was as all of you guys know, was probably more famous for his antics outside the ring than in the ring. And I'll never forget the first day I met him in San Jose, the old auditorium there. He was telling everybody that he had gone up in a homemade helicopter that was pulled by a rope on this guy's ranch up in Northern California somewhere, and it was probably like the helicopter, you had to pull it to get it going, so it actually go into the air. Now it kind of reminds me of a hang glider now. But Ray said he went probably at least 100 feet. The rope was probably 100 foot long. He went about 100 feet in the air for about 100 yards in a homemade helicopter. And I just envisioned it looking like something pre-Wright Brothers era.
Wright Brothers type of thing, yeah.
and then another time in the Cow Palace, he was the main event, but he had to cancel because everybody knows that he loved the rodeo and loved the rodeo business and participated. And somehow a gate flew open at one of these rodeo events, and a bull, I guess it was someone was riding a bareback on a bull, but the gate swung open and hit Ray in the face, and it hit him so hard that his right eye, one of his eyes, swelled completely shut. It fractured his jaw and fractured that whole side of his face probably. And he came to the Cow Palace, and in the locker room, his face looked like it was made up from somebody from Hollywood. It was so horrible looking. And he got in the ring. Shire put him in the ring so the fans, because he might have brought in Pedro Morales to be the substitute for Ray. That I may be wrong.
Yeah, against Pat Patterson. I remember that. Yeah.
Is that true, Ray? Do you remember that?
I remember. Yeah, Ray got, because it was supposed to be Pat Patterson Ray Stevens match, and Pedro Morales sub for Ray because Ray was injured. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I was standing back in the curtain back of the hillside, walk out on the hillside, and you could see the swelling on his face. Probably there's probably a good 30 yards away from the ring, and it was just horrendous. But you know, it was just one of those things that Ray Stevens did. It was like the things that you know, a book could be written on the antics of Ray Stevens outside the ring and probably be a bestseller. And everybody threw the stories in that they knew.
Nick, you mentioned that he always wanted to have like the fastest motorcycle and things like that.
Here's one, and it was just to show you where Ray's mind was. He wanted the biggest, the fastest, and whatever. And Bobby walks across the studio one day. We're doing interviews, and Ray's just sitting about 10 feet away. And he's just sitting there, just half asleep, waiting to do an interview. And Bobby just walks over. He says, "Just go along with me." And I go, "Yeah." And all Bobby says was, he says, "Well, Nick," and he raised his voice so he knew Ray could hear it. But Ray wasn't paying any attention to us. And Bobby says, "It had 450 horsepower." And Bobby knew what reaction he was going to get. Ray jumped up and says, "I want one." And it didn't make any difference whether it was a motorcycle, a boat, snowmobile. You name it. He had to have the biggest and the fastest. And he had a snowmobile one time when we had these cabins up in northern Minnesota, north of Minneapolis. And he says, "We go up to the factory," and he went with this other friend of his. They came back with when I ran about 110 miles an hour back then. I mean, they all run about 110 miles an hour today. Back then, that was a pretty big deal. He said, "Do you want one?" I said, "No, Ray, I'll just, I don't need one." Yeah.
When Ray first got up to Minneapolis, he wanted to get a snowmobile. So he went out and he was looking at it. He said he got the biggest and fastest one he could get. And he not only got one, but he got one for his wife, too. Oh, yeah. He got two of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question. But I mean, he just... And we had more fun because up in Minnesota we had the snowmobiles, we had this little resort that with all these cabins on a lake, and then we had these. And he had a boat, and I had a boat, and then one day I'm out in the middle of the lake, and I got out there first. The boat's just anchored, and just my wife and I are just sunning. And Ray brought back a boat from California. It was a jet boat. This thing would run about 80 miles an hour with a big jet blowing it up. And I hear this thing coming across the lake, and I'm in an area where you're not supposed to go fast. Didn't mean anything to Ray. And he's coming at about 90 miles an hour straight towards me. And with these jet boats, you could turn them around on a dime, and the spray goes back about 130, 40, 50 feet. And so he's coming towards me, and I see him coming, and I stand up and I look, and I don't think he's going to make it. Well, he turns the thing. He practically, from the jet, God bless it, it worked out just fine. But he almost made my boat turn over. The jet was so strong, he came so close. And when he came back, he's laughing like hell. And I'm looking at him, and I says, Raymond, and this was a beautiful metal flake boat, all gold trim and everything. I says, Raymond, if you had hit me, I said, I'd taken a ball-peen hammer and punched a hole all over that goddamn boat of yours. Oh, well, no, it's okay, Mick, you know. But I mean, he just loved to take chances. It didn't make any difference what it was.
You know, Red, he had a charmed life.
And you know one other thing? You've never heard anybody say anything bad about Ray Stevens.
No.
You never heard a guy say, he was a jerk, he screwed me here, he couldn't get over, he did this, nothing. No one said anything. No. They loved the guy.
Yeah, just any place he went, he endeared people to him. And I think much of it was the fact that he was such a he was a big kid, and he had a big heart, and because he was, in a sense, childish in a certain way, but in a man's body, that everybody loved him for it.
You know, Red, when he... Okay. Red, what was the thing? You know, at Ray's funeral, you know, I remember Don Manukian, who was a tag team partner of his in the early 60s, was a football player out here, you know, and they were friends, I guess, for probably 25 years.
Yes.
And he said, like, you know, Ray would call him from the road, and I mean, one of the things I thought was so funny was, like, he goes, like, you know, you never, because, you know, I didn't call him back because whoever knew where to find him. Because where do you call Ray Stevens back at?
Incidentally, I spoke with Don Manukian yesterday. He's going to come. Well, you probably heard of the King of the Indies, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Red. I heard you were that some of your guys are going to come over there.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to relate that a little bit?
It's October 27th, 28th. We're actually going to be there. Brian's going to be there as well. It's going to be in Vallejo, California. Roland Alexander is the promoter. We've talked about that, and a lot of the Cauliflower Alley guys are going to be there because they're going to honor, you know, retired wrestlers.
Right. So far that I know of, I spoke with Nick yesterday. Nick is going to come there. Don Manukian, who you just mentioned a short while ago, will be there. Bobby Heenan's going to be there. Mike Tenay probably be there. Myself, Roddy Piper.
Awesome.
I'm calling Roddy at the moment, and the Destroyer, Dick Beyer is going to be there, and Pepper Gomez. Here, Pepper Gomez is going to be there.
Very good. I'll bring my booster chair. I used to take Pepper to towns with me, and I put a phone book in the car. He said, "What's that for?" I said, "In case you want to look out the window." One night I wrestled Pepper in Portland, Indiana, and it was an outdoor show on a racetrack. And the racetrack is banked, so the ring's at an angle. So I said, 1, 2, and follow me. So I hit him, Pepper, he hits me. I roll out the short side and run to the big side and jump in. He chases me and runs to the big side, and the bottom of the apron is on the bridge of his nose. He says, very funny. I had to wait for him to go back and get in the short end.
So Robert, you did that someplace else up in Minnesota on an outdoor show. You did the same thing. This time, the ring was low enough that he tried to jump up at that point. And even when he tried 2 times, and then he just ran around the other side.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Oh, my God. Hey, we're totally out of time. I want to thank all you guys for joining in, and all you guys, thanks very much, Rick, you know, especially under the circumstances and everything.
I just want to thank these guys, man. It's been an honor to be on the same show with them. You guys
did exactly. Man.
And, Red, I want to tell you something. I am really looking forward to this thing in October with all those guys coming in. It's going to be a lot of fun, for sure.
It's going to be a big day there. Three big days, actually.
Yeah.
Rick, Claire, are you going to come to Cauliflower in February?
The Rick's gone.
Is he?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
I was wondering if I should bring my wife.
All my love to
Oh, God, Lord.
Or something inflatable. And a squeegee.
Okay, this is Red Bastien. I'm out of here. Thank you guys very much. I love
thank you very much, Red.
And I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay. My love to all you guys.
Okay, thanks, Nick and Bobby and Billy, and we'll be talking to all you guys soon. And I want to thank everyone for listening in.
No one to talk about.
We'll be back here tomorrow at 5.